So now we're moving on to the northern area of Melbourne, and we're going to look at the Beveridge Northwest Resilience Strategy in Mitchell Shire Council. So this is a unique, first of its kind strategy that will support the development of community and suburb that can respond to future disruption, as well as existing chronic stresses in the surrounding area. This resilience plan is the first of its kind and will support a thriving, livable and strong community where residents experience social connectedness with positive health and wellbeing as the main objectives of this development. The resilience plan for Beveridge Northwest has been developed in partnership with Mitchell Shire Council, the Victorian Planning Authority, the Department of Transport and Planning, formerly the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning in Victoria, Yarra Valley Water and RMIT University. And we're fortunate today to have Nick Adams, who's the Research and Advocacy Lead at Mitchell Shire Council, and Dr. Annette Kroen from RMIT University, joining us to discuss their collaboration. And after this, we'll have a discussion panel with Nick and Annette and Anastasia and Justin. So get your questions on structure planning ready and into the chat. So thanks, Nick and Annette, and I'll hand over to Nick now.
Thank you, Bronwyn. It's a pleasure today to be able to introduce the Beveridge Northwest Resilience Plan. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Taungurung and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as the traditional owners of the lands and waterways in the area known as Mitchell Shire. And today I'm on Taungurung country. I pay my respect to their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging, as well as other First Nations people here today. As Bronwyn mentioned, the Beveridge Northwest Resilience Plan is a unique, first of its kind plan that's really going to help us to place resilience at the heart of the development of a new community in Beveridge. Beveridge Northwest itself will be home to approximately 50,000 residents in the future, and this plan will help ensure that the community is built around resilience. As Bronwyn mentioned, this plan has been the result of a partnership between Mitchell Shire Council, the Victorian Planning Authority, the Department of Transport and Planning, formerly the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, Yarra Valley Water, and of course, importantly, RMIT. I just want to say that any comments today beyond the plan itself are not necessarily representative of the views of all of the partners, but this plan is something that all of the partners have worked really closely together to develop. I'm happy to pass over now to Annette, who can speak much more thoroughly about the plan itself. Thanks, Annette.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'll try to share my screen. Did that work? Can you see that now?
Yes, just if you, play the slideshow and then we're right.
Yeah. So that should be the slideshow.
Yeah,
perfect. Great. Thanks, everyone. I would also like to start by acknowledging the people of the Woi-wurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on which land I work and live. And I would like to acknowledge their ancestors, elders past and present. And thanks for the introduction, Bronwyn and Nick. You already took away some of my slides, so that is good. I'll be quicker. So yes, Beveridge Northwest Resilience Plan. As Nick said, this is a plan for, an area where we are expecting 45 to 50,000 residents once everything is built out. And it's about 40 kilometers from Melbourne CBD in the north in Mitchell Shire. The partners have already been mentioned. So all of us have worked together to develop the Beveridge Northwest Resilience Plan. And I should probably also mention the City of Melbourne, who was part of the working group until June 2021. And one of the reasons for that is that actually the plan started as a Resilient Melbourne project, but then because Resilient Melbourne changed or was sold, that's why City of Melbourne went. Supported us, but wasn't part of the final working group. So the whole plan really started from a MOU for the Northern Growth Corridor, and it which says to collaborate in a shared vision to achieve sustainable, resilient, and livable development in the Northern Growth Corridor. And the resilience plan in Beveridge Northwest was was the first project that we did, or the first collaboration that we did with that MOU. The plan was developed through a 12-month project, so where all the project partners came together, we discussed different things about the resilience of Beveridge Northwest. In the end, we developed a detailed and a concise version. So the concise version, which is, I think, 8 pages, I'm not totally sure anymore, but that's publicly available. And the detailed version has been a working document for us, but will also be published soon in the next, probably weeks. So the concise version was launched in June 2023. And go to the next one. So really the content of that plan and the discussions we started discussing was what is actually urban resilience, what do we mean by that? And I guess in comparison to what we heard before with Melton, so we didn't focus on climate resilience in that sense, but we had a broad understanding of resilience, including community, environmental, and economic areas. The context in that plan, I mean, we explain where Beveridge Northwest is, and actually in the longer version, we had a look at all the plans, well, a lot of the plans that are out there, which are related to Beveridge Northwest or to precinct structure planning in general or growth areas, to understand what some of the current resilience risks and vulnerabilities are in the area in Beveridge Northwest. And with that, I should also mention, we decided for the 3 or 4 main risks and vulnerabilities within the 3 areas, social, economic, and environmental. Obviously, there are more, but we really wanted to focus on the main ones. Together, we developed a vision and objectives for the area, and we'll also try to find out what are gaps and what could we do as actions within the plan to actually close those gaps. Then the final content is the governance, monitoring, and learning, which is probably not so much important for the plan, but for the partnership. So how do we actually monitor that we are implementing the plan? What is our learning? How do we work together? So, and I probably should mention the resilience plan is a strategy. It's not a planning instrument. So it's really outside of the precinct structure planning that Anastasia mentioned before. So there is a PSP, which has not been published yet it has been published, but it's still in discussion for the Beveridge Northwest area, but the resilience plan is not part of that PSP and will also not go into the planning system. So it's really a strategy for the partners. And in that sense, probably because it's one of the first of these plans, you have to start in that way. I will not go through all of the risks and vulnerabilities, but just so you can have a quick look at what we identified as the main risks and vulnerabilities. And it's related to housing, to community, social inequality, but then also employment, transport options, and the environmental side. So if you want to have a closer look at that, you can have a look at the plan itself. So it will have that. Then also just some key points for the vision. So the vision is really that residents experience social connectedness and health and well-being. We have a neighborhood where people can access their daily living needs within a 20-minute return walk from home. So the 20-minute city neighborhood, which is in Plan Melbourne, is also in our strategy. The community is economically, socially, Indigenous and culturally diverse, including a diversity of age groups, household structures, and housing options. And we actually, before we had one of the vulnerabilities or of the risks probably more is that it's not diverse. So we really want to try to achieve that. Key community and social infrastructure and locally accessible services will early in the lifetime of the precinct. And you all will know that the timing is often an issue, especially with social infrastructure and community infrastructure. So again, that was one of the risks that we saw, and the vision is really to have some of these already early in the lifetime there. And then that the precinct is really less resource intensive than comparable precincts, supports high levels of biodiversity, and is resilient to environmental risks. So in that plan, in the longer version, we also have some potential initiatives. So the partners discussed what they could do, what they would be happy to do. And these are really just some suggested initiatives for now, because, well, this will be one of the next steps to actually implement that. So there are the adaptable buildings and universal design principles, so that it's the precinct is more accessible, but also that you can actually adapt to future development, that it's not, well, we have this building now and we can't do anything else with it. Shared use of spaces, temporary use of buildings. So that has to do really with the early delivery. So if you have a temporary use, maybe you have a community center at the beginning in a house, but later it will be something else because the community center will be moving somewhere else. Then also having community hubs as multi-purpose institutions, so that this is really where the community can meet. Having community development workers on site even before the first house is built, and some things like inclusionary zoning and cooperation with housing cooperatives or associations. So as I said, these were some potential initiatives that came up in our discussions. And something I should probably also mention, it might even be on the next slide. Usually a resilience plan is developed with community, but yeah, that's the difficulty in Beveridge Northwest and in our growth areas. Well, there is not a community yet, so they can't be brought into the plan for now, but they will be brought in at some point later in the future once people have started moving in there. But really what we wanted to do with this partnership was to start thinking about resilience before everything is built, so that some things can already be put in earlier and not when everything has been built, community is there, and then we might realize, oh, we should have done something differently. Yeah, the next steps for the partnership is, well, bringing the resilience plan to life. So, and regularizing review and updates of the plan. So really looking at, are we achieving what we wanted to achieve? Do we need to change something? And to implement program or develop a program of projects to achieve tangible policy practice and research outcome. And really the implications for council, because I guess that's really the most important bit here. And it's the most important bit because they are really the ones who are implementing a lot of the suggested projects, or who actually will work with the community there. So, and really the question is, what does the resilience plan mean for the work that council does? So what does it contain that council can take on and work with? How can it actually be implemented? And also, what does it mean for other growth areas, or even other established areas in Mitchell Shire? Is there something in the plan that would be important to take over for other plans? Does it actually mean there should be a resilience plan for each growth area or each new precinct in Mitchell Shire? And also, how can the plan be further embedded in council work and strategies? And Mitchell has really started this work now. So we from RMIT attended a workshop a couple of months ago, maybe, where they're really thinking about what does it actually mean? How can we use this resilience plan, and how can we use our usual work to actually implement the ideas from the resilience plan? And I think that's probably a really important point of it, or part of it, because as I said, it doesn't sit within the statutory system. So it's a strategy, it's kind of voluntary, but still it needs to be used for the further work. And just to conclude, so lessons learned. I think the discussion between relevant stakeholders is really valuable, and also developing a statement of intent. What do we actually want to achieve with this resilience plan? And as Nick mentioned before, so maybe some of the views that we mention here are not shared by all of the partners. And sometimes there might be ideas that are a bit different, but it's really good to have this discussion and to come together and to see what is it actually that we want to achieve, or what we can agree on. The resilience plan really prepares the ground. So as I said, the community needs to be involved later, but it is a start from where to think on how do we actually want to develop the PSP? How do we want the development to happen? And yeah, resilience in growth areas is highly important. Again, I'm probably not telling you something new, but it is really this, well, it's a paddock. A lot of people who are moving there don't have social networks within that area. And a lot of infrastructure is just not there yet. So in that sense, community resilience is really important. But as we heard from Melton before, climate resilience is also important. With building new houses, we take away a lot of the biodiversity, nature. So really to think about how can we keep that biodiversity is also important. And then the economic part, thinking of, well, where could employment be? Can we plan for employment in this area is also important. And I guess the question at the end is really, is there a possibility to streamline the process? So with streamline, I mean, could we actually put that into the planning system? How can we integrate the two? Or will it be always a voluntary process, which actually takes quite a bit of time? And so it might not happen for a lot of people. Oops, so that's it. Thank you. And I'll try to unshare. I might already have unshared.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Annette. Really good overview of a complex topic.